Right, we're recording. Yes, people, welcome back to Process. Today we're joined by a very special guest all the way from the other side of the world, over the pond, as they call it, isn't it? Over the pond.
It is.
Mr. Peter Ramage, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to catch up anyway, because obviously we knew each other from Newcastle. You were there coaching a little bit, but you were there as a player. I think you played, was it over 50 Prem appearances?
Yeah, 51 Prem appearances, 69 in total. So
yeah, that's not bad going.
Not bad.
Not bad going. But yeah, so it's good to have you on, because obviously me and David Charlton, the psychologist, done a podcast together, and you also did a podcast with him, and I listened back to it, and there was a lot of good points. So if people haven't already listened to it, definitely check that out. But there were some good points that I wanted to discuss with you. But we'll start off with, obviously, you were at Newcastle United back in the day. How old were you when you first signed there?
I was 10 when I went in on trial. I went for a 6-week trial. I was at Berwick-upon-Tweed. That's where I used to live. So I was at Berwick Rangers Juniors. So I was coming up and down the road, and my granddad was driving me down, picked me up straight after school, driving me down for my 6-week trial. And then, fortunately enough, got asked to stay. And the rest is history, as they say, you know. So from about 11-year-old, I was, officially a Newcastle United kind of junior.
Yeah, so you're always a Newcastle fan when you were younger as well?
Yeah, my aunties had season tickets for God, longer than I've been alive. Still got them now in the East Stand. So when I was growing up, I was forever badgering her to go to the games. I mean, football, as you well know, it's life, and it's the life and bread of everything back home. And yeah, I was a Newcastle fan from literally the moment I was able to walk and talk.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, especially I think the North East, a lot of it's just like born and bred in here. Like everybody's either like born and bred football, or maybe you get one or two people who like rugby, but majority of the time it's football, isn't it? Newcastle United especially. Majority of the time anyway. So you were there in Newcastle for a number of years. So what was the system like when you were there? Because I know obviously it's changed over the years in terms of the academy setup, but when you first went in, was it a similar setup to what it is now at that age? And then obviously you progressed to your scholarship and stuff. Is it the same sort of setup? Was it completely different back then?
Somewhat the same, somewhat different, if that makes sense, because I know nowadays the academy, I think you're given kind of like 2-year deals, throughout the system. So you're given time to try and progress. Mm-hmm. Whereas back then it was year by year. And even then, you could be released at, the drop of a hat. There wasn't really any kind of signed paperwork, so to speak. So that was a little bit different. But then when you go into the actual academy system, from like it was under 17s and under 19s back in my day, so it wasn't like 18s and 23s, but it was a different world to what it is now. Uh-huh. First and foremost, facilities wise, we trained at Maiden Castle, so it's down at Durham, which is wasn't exactly the most forgiving of environments. It was literally you shared the dressing room, shared everything with, the university. So you had students walking around the place. The canteen, you had people popping in and out for cups of teas and coffees. It's not like, what we have now at Newcastle, but also in terms of your own environment, and that, we had, I know we discussed this, we had jobs. Yeah. We had to clean boots. We had to clean equipment. We had to put the goals out. We didn't have people to help us do all this stuff. It was part of our education, was to, kind of look after yourself, look after your equipment, look after the environment, look after the coaches. And if it wasn't done, there was punishments. We were, Al Nervine was the academy director back then, and still to this day, probably one of the best educators I've ever come across, and from both, teaching at school and as a coach from football. Mm-hmm. He ruled with an iron fist, but it was all for your benefit, to make you a stronger person, make you more grounded, make you more humble, but also make you more hardworking, to be able to, get yourself out of that academy environment and get into the first team, where you didn't have to, pick up sloggies from the floor and sweep the dressing room and clean his boots and things like that. But it was just all to try and make you ready to, to go into the big bad world. Yeah,
I think it has changed so much since then. Because even when I expected to kind of go into that environment, like you hear the likes of yourself talking about it, and then was it the class of '97, obviously Gary Neville's, the Beckham stuff, they always talk about it, how when they were like apprentices or scholars or whatever you call it, they were just I think there was a point, was it not Gary Neville got like put in a washing machine or something like that he talks about, but like you're always kind of like not so much picked on, but you were kind of dealt these jobs and you had to go and do the dirty work and scrub boots and stuff like that. But I remember when I went in, we didn't really have to do that. I was kind of looking forward to that, like the fact that I used to maybe sometimes get a pro's football boots to clean for the season, like that was a kind of an old school thing. We never really got that. I know some clubs did.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing, because we trained, the first team trained at a different environment. They trained at Chester Street. So we didn't get first team's boots, but you had to do the job. And what he ended up doing is he ended up helping like the other lads, because like, one of the jobs could have been simply going to the groundsman and saying, right, I'll need two goals. Kenny Wharton needs 1 goal. You know, we had Adam Sadler, the goalkeeper coach. Sads needs 3 goals. And that was your job done. So you would go in, tell the groundsman how many goals he needed. He would go and put them out. And then that was it. But then you had guys who had to like sweep the dressing rooms and make sure the showers were clean after every day. So their job was like at the end of the day. Well, Durham and Newcastle, in the middle of rush hour, you could be getting home at 7 o'clock at night. Do you know what I mean? It's like you could get caught in that A1 traffic going around or going over the bridge. So at the end of the day, the geezers who were like had the jobs first thing in the morning were helping the guys at the end of the day, because everybody wanted to get home, and you weren't allowed to leave until every single job was done. And Al or Kenny or Neil Metcalf, who was a physio at the time, they would go around and they would make sure that every job was done. And then Paul Brogan, who was the bus driver, would be like, right, Brogues, they're ready to go. Yeah. So he ended up helping him. So it brought a bit of camaraderie towards the dressing room too, because you're all working as one to try and, to be honest with you, get out of there. You know, you didn't want to stay there, because at the end of the day, I mean, you were, like I said, we had to get to St. James's for 9:45 in the morning. The bus left. And if you weren't on the bus at 9:45, Brogues would just leave you. Yeah. So, but like me and Carl Bell, we were getting up, and I was down at Carl's at 7 o'clock to get the metro to get into town. So we weren't getting home till 9 o'clock at night. And then I was getting up at 6 o'clock the next morning to get on the metro to get into the town. So you started helping each other. So I still talk to probably more of the guys now from that era than I do from any of the other time throughout my career, just purely because you built up these friendships through doing jobs and helping each other out.
Yeah, I think like some of the things you said there, I think that's kind of missed in the modern day. Because I remember when I first went in my first year apprentice, we kind of had a few of them jobs, and there was we had old school coaches. We had Dave Watson and Kev Richardson, and like them two wouldn't let you miss jobs and stuff. So we had that, which was quite good. And I feel like I don't know if it was the coaches changing or whatever it was, but down the line, it kind of like got a little bit more slack, and then lads started to complain about jobs, and jobs wouldn't get done. And maybe there was 1 or 2 lads who used to do all the jobs because they knew that they wanted to get home, and there was lads who just sat around on the sofas just waiting for them jobs to get done. And there wasn't so much that team aspect, which I think is probably more common these days. Like the lads would kind of get a lot more done for them, like them jobs like sweeping the dressing room and stuff like that. I remember like as the years went by, I remember the dressing room was just a tip, and I was just thinking like there's going to be like where's the team kind of like you on about respect and stuff like that, for the fact that we're in full time, we're getting so much done for us. Why can't we just keep our dressing room kind of clean? It's like little things like that, which I think your era's probably, they were taught that at a young age, whereas a lot of the lads don't really get that sometimes, especially when they get given a lot of stuff at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing that we're trying to implement here at Phoenix as well, is that, you know, we have a notice board that it's called Sweep the Shed. I know we referenced it before we came on air here, but like from the book Legacy, the New Zealand one, we've done a lot of research over the last probably 2 years. And obviously one of the biggest things that New Zealand have is, and excuse my French, but they have no dickheads. Yeah. It's one of their big.
Yeah, that's actually their quote as well, isn't it? That's what they say in the book.
It's their quote. So no dickheads. So we have that kind of thing here. Whereas every player goes on like a rotation. He's got to clean the dressing room after every day, because we train at the same, like at all one facility. So, and it's been incredible to see the guys buy into it. Mm-hmm. And now, I mean, we don't have the staffing that, you know, the Academy at Newcastle have. So when we go on away trips and we're flying here, there and everywhere, guys all of a sudden are picking up a bag and putting it on the bus, and they're helping, you know, the kit man. He's only one guy, but he's got 18 bags that he's got to like transport. well, everybody's picking up a bag and everybody's helping and everybody, and I'm a big believer in that. That's been a part of our success over the last 2 years that I've been here anyway, is that, you know, we've got these kind of unseen tangibles that the players have bought into, and they're now policing it themselves. So, you know, we don't fine the boys anymore because they fine themselves. Like if the dressing room's not clean the next day, or when they come in the next day, the person whose day it was, he's fined and they've got to spin the wheel. But now that's kind of bringing a little bit of humour, a little bit of camaraderie amongst themselves. You know, there might be one guy who's, you know, he's got to take his daughter to a doctor's appointment. It's his turn. And he's like, can I swap with you? Like, you're tomorrow. Can I do? And so that, or can you help us? So it's starting to build up relationships, and it's been great to see that the guys have bought into it. And like I said, I think it's been one of the big reasons as to why, you know, we've been successful. And when you're trying to sell it to the boys and you said, right, New Zealand, they've got a 93% win percent ratio over the last God knows how many years. It's easy to buy in when you've got proof that it works. So, and I think that's what's missing in academy systems at this moment. I mean, I know that obviously you can't do some of the jobs for whatever reasons, but I do think there's some things that we can do to help these guys get ready, because not everybody's going to become a professional footballer and earn 100 grand a week. They're going to go and have to work 9 till 5 in an office where these kind of things are going to be expected of them. So if it's brought into them or instilled into them from a young and early age, when it comes to going to do that job because for whatever reason your career didn't work, I think it's going to be easier to make that transition into normal work and life because you've kind of got them things instilled in you.
Yeah, I know. I think that's what I think a lot of the topics that I talk about with people. Like I've had a few young lads on, and like the transition out of football is so much of a hit and a shock to them. Like even for me, I talk about like a simple little thing. Like the first time I had to do an 8-hour shift, like that was just like I was like, what's this? Like an 8-hour shift work. I came home and my girlfriend, she's a nurse and she does like 13 hours. She's on night shift at the minute. She does long shifts and she comes home, she's fine. And I'm like, shut up for an 8-hour shift or like a 9-hour shift. And she's like, oh, I do this like 5 days a week. And it's just a complete different world of football. Like, even like back in the day when you were saying you were getting up at 6 and you went home till 7, like that wasn't really happening. Didn't really happen. But for us, I think the longer days were when you were injured. Like you were in early and then you obviously finished just for being injured. But most of the time it was like in at 9 o'clock, have your breakfast, train at like 10:30. And then you're like in the season, you'd maybe sometimes do a gym session. You'd be away by 2, 2:30, and then that's your kind of your day. Which is probably why when lads go to have them real world jobs, like it's a shock for them, and they maybe struggle, and they maybe like can't deal with it, or go down certain routes and they can't cope with it. So I think I put a little thing in the notes about it, trying to instill some sort of work mentality in young lads, because I think a lot of them leave school going to football and they think like, all right, I'm just going to go and kick a football around for the rest of the day, and then I'm going to go home, sit on the Xbox and play with my mates, something like that, which is what it is for a lot of lads. Like that's the life, and that's maybe what they see like with the top pros, which it is, because they only train in the morning and they kind of have the afternoon to chill a lot of the time. But the reality is, like, one, there's only a small percentage that do make it, and two, like you need to be able to have the mentality that you're going to work hard, even do extra little bit of work, even if it's not working like at a shop or at a bar or something like that, like putting the extra work in football and making the most of the hours that you've got and the facility that you've got, like at a good academy setup.
And that's the thing. I don't think young players nowadays realise, especially obviously working at Newcastle, they don't realise what they've got, because you've got facilities there that's set up for you to be a professional footballer. But I don't think players have the mentality to take advantage of that in terms of doing that little bit extra. You know, I seen you work your nuts off when you were coming back from your injury. You were in first thing in the morning and you were the last one out at night trying. And I don't think many people have that mentality to look back, and if they haven't made it, be like, well, you know what it is? It was just because I weren't good enough. It wasn't because, you know, I could have done a bit more or should have done a bit more. Like, if you can look back and think, I just wasn't good enough, but I gave it everything I can, then I could, like, personally, I can live myself with the career that I've had, knowing that I didn't get to where I wanted to be. And I have regrets, no doubt about it. I have an abundance of regrets. And I'm a big believer that when people say they don't have any regrets in their career, yes, you do. Yeah, everybody does, because there's something in your mind. Oh, I just wish I could have if I could have done. Yeah, everybody does. And I certainly have them, but I know that I gave myself every opportunity to try and get to the top. I just weren't good enough, but I tried my best. I had a good career, but I do think I could have personally done a lot more to be able to stay there. And that was just purely down to me, probably not wanting it as much or not taking advantage of the opportunity that I had. And I think that's a big thing nowadays. And, you know, I listened to Chris Wilder, who done the interview the other day about when he goes to the pub. And that's in a nutshell, that's what the 99.99% of players who didn't make it, that's their attitude. It was like, you know, I got an injury here, or it just didn't work out. No, it's because you didn't work hard enough. You didn't have the mentality that I was going to make it. You just kind of, I'll just accept that I wasn't, you know, I didn't make it. And I think that's a big problem with young players nowadays. Now, there is the odd one or two that you see and that's coming through. And Man United's a classic example of the players continually coming through and becoming international superstars, that they have that mentality that's instilled, and like you said, from, you know, the class of 92.
Yeah, exactly. Like some of the things you said there about, you were saying you had a lot of regrets and stuff like that. You probably don't, at the time, you probably didn't realize it, but it takes it like a year or 2 years or 5 years down the line for you to look back and all the things like you wouldn't be saying that if you hadn't learned the lessons you've learned. You've probably picked all the things that didn't do well when you were younger and put them into your life now, which is why you may be passing it on to like your players, like you have it. You've instilled this kind of attitude into your players.
Yeah, 100%. Brendan, I mean, I was at Newcastle at a time where I had a great opportunity that I didn't take full advantage of. I just kind of, and, you know, one of the things I said to Dave early on in that podcast was that I regret not being a man. I stayed as a boy even through my time there. I kind of just accepted things. You know, if I wasn't playing or I was dropped, yeah, okay, no worries. I'll work harder to try and get in the team. Instead of being, no, like, I'm going to be bloody minded and be like, no, I'm going to work even harder. And that was one of my biggest regrets at Newcastle, is that I kind of just accepted my role. Like, I was a squad player. I was never a first teamer. I never really fully accepted myself as like a first team player at Newcastle. I was a squad player. And I think that was one of a huge regret of mine, is that I didn't, you know, Stephen Taylor was the opposite to me. Yeah. Tales was a character, yeah, but he had that mentality that he knew what he wanted. He wanted to be the number one centre-back in Newcastle, and he worked his socks off. And yeah, he's Marmite. People love him or hate him, but he played for Newcastle for 10 plus years in the first team. And that takes some strength of character to be able to do that. And I admire him and I revere him for doing that. But I also kick myself that I wasn't a little bit more like that, and that I just accepted it. And when it came to leaving, I was like, no, I should have signed that extra year and I should have proved myself. But I just accepted things, and it was one of the. Mentally, I've struggled with that since leaving. And I don't think I really got myself out of that mentality until I was into my 30s. You know, I kind of just accepted things through my career, and it's one of the biggest regrets of my time, is that, you know, I could have achieved a lot more. I achieved I had a hell of a career in my eyes, but I think that if I'd been a little bit more selfish in my mentality, that I could have done more. And again, I might have had a better career. Who knows? I might have played more games in the Premier League. Who knows? But it's something that I'll always think back and think, what if?
Yeah, I know. You can always think like that, but you did have a great career. You've obviously went on to better things, but you've, like I said before, you took all them things that you've learned and now you're passing them on. And like, it is hard as a young lad. Like I was the same, like when you're a young lad, and if your personality, you're quite maybe like intrinsic, or you're quite like, keep yourself to yourself. It is hard to be that kind of person to go to the manager's office and knock on his door. Like I've went to do it before and then just be like, nah, fuck that. I'm not doing that. I'll do it tomorrow sort of thing. Like it's best. Like 17, 18-year-old, you're not playing on a Saturday, even, or like you feel like you're training better than somebody and you're not getting a chance at the reserves. Like it's hard to build that bravery up. It's a terrifying thing. Like even if the coach isn't really like a scary person, it's still like you get a bit nervous and stuff. But I say to lads that you have to do it, and I say it on the other side as well. If you're like, maybe if you feel a bit tired or you have a few injuries and stuff like that, like, because I feel like the young lads, especially when they're really young. I remember when I was a scholar, we were training like I used to, the keeper coach used to have me out at like 9:30, do some kicking, then we'd be out with the team at 10:30, then the afternoon would be out doing some more kicking. And my body, like I think that's like, obviously I had a lot of injuries. I think my body maybe just can't deal with that amount of volume. So if you do have that sort of like niggles or you're starting to feel stuff, tell a coach and they should be able to they should be able to understand.
And it's like you just said there, you know, some coaches, a big role of mine is to be that buffer, because I'm only just recently retired, you know, 2 years retired. I still know what players are going through. So if somebody's quiet, that's not normally quiet, it's like, you all right? What's up? You want to talk? You know, you kind of, and players have got to find that person. Like, some players can go to the manager's office and can, you know, knock on the door and be like, well, why aren't I playing? Or what do I need? Like, the biggest thing I say now is don't go in and ask, why aren't I playing? What can I do to get in the team? Do you know, coaches, and it's something I've learned, coaches hate asked, why aren't I in the team? Because it's like, it's an easy question for us to answer. It's like, you ain't trained hard enough. So if you come in and be like, what do I need to do to get in the team? You know, what do I need to work on? What do I need to concentrate on this week? Or what do I, you know, how, you know, what's he doing that I need to implement in my game? But it's having to be honest with you, excuse my friend, it's having the bollocks to just talk. You know, if you're feeling tired, listen, coach, I just ain't feeling great today. You know, yesterday took it out of me and I don't feel great. Going to a physio and just saying that, and then he can relay the information. It's just one of the biggest things that I suffered with, and after my second cruciate, I had like a lot of mental struggles with myself and whether my body was going to be able to handle playing football again. Just being able to go and talk. Like the second one, the first one when I was at Newcastle was okay because I was the unknown. I didn't know how things were gonna transpire, but I always had faith that I was gonna come back because I had, you know, some of the best physios in the game at Newcastle with Derek Wright, Paul Ferris, people like that, Kevin Bell, who, you know, got me through my injury. But the second one, like, that's 2 ACLs now. I'm thinking, am I gonna be the same? And when I was coming back, I was having a lot of self-doubts that my body was gonna be able to handle playing. I mean, I was at QPR in the Championship, whether I was gonna be able to come back, and I just bottled things up. And it was not until I went to Barnsley and worked with Danny Wilson, who kind of seen that in me and be like, you need to go and speak to somebody. And I was like, back then, I mean, this was 2013, wasn't really thought about to be able to go and talk. You know, there was a stigma attached. It was like, and I wasn't having mental problems. I was just having a lot of self-doubt. But then I started going to talk to somebody, and it was just, sometimes it was just a cup of coffee and we were just, you know, chatting away. And then all of a sudden the conversation was sliding down that route before I even knew it. Yeah. And I was coming out and I was feeling better about myself. And I think that's, for young kids nowadays, it's key that they have that support network from that side of things, because you can be out of the game, you know, and with all due respect to like yourself, an injury could finish your career. And that's a hell of a thing to try to deal with. Yeah. And young guys who have these aspirations, all of a sudden, it's just gone. It's a tough thing to take. So having that courage to go and talk to people, and that's the biggest thing. Like, one of my core values is having the courage to just speak, having the courage to go and work, just having courage in general. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be attached to it, but just having the courage to go and like chat to people about whatever it is, to be able to help you to try and get to that next stage, or get to that, past that barrier, or, you know, getting a bag of balls and having the courage to go out and practice whatever it is to practice. It's a big thing for me at this moment in time, is that I wish I had that again when I was a lot younger. Yeah, I think we'll touch on your injuries and stuff, but a good point you made there was, like, obviously having the courage, but you can tell that you're very mindful, because what you've been through yourself, you know what lads in your position feel like. And like you said, if the lad's quiet, that who know he isn't quiet, you're mindful enough to go and say to them, like, is everything all right? But I think a lot of coaches, especially, you talk about your old school ones, that I don't think they're not in that mentality. They're thinking like, what the fuck's wrong with him being like, he's in a huff today kind of thing. Like, they're not like, I think the modern day coaches are probably a little bit more better at that, because of
what psychology and obviously talking about depression and stuff like that, that's a lot more kind of prominent in the world today. So people are a lot more switched on to it. So like if you are a coach or even like a parent, if you see your kids like having a down week or even a down like month, like some people have like a long period where they're down, have a word with them. Like if maybe the form's dropped, there might be a reason mentally. It might not be like a physical thing, and there might not be like, oh, but he's not asked about playing at the minute. His head's somewhere else. It might be something like deep down, like it could be anything, like something happening at home, something with his friends, or maybe the fact that he's not playing well is getting him down even more. Because there's so many mental things, especially when you're a young lad, and if you don't have that confidence, like having confidence in football is probably just as important as having ability. I feel like if you're a confident lad,
100%.
like, and you go onto the pitch feeling good. That's why I'm such a believer in like looking good, feel good, play good. That's a little thing that's why one of the reasons I enjoyed in the gym, because it made me feel good, and like I wanted to be that lad that was like so you look on the pitch like, fuck me, he's a beast, which I should have really changed my mentality a little bit, but that was my mentality at the time.
And that's perfect example. That like now I go to the gym for vanity reasons, but I want to look good, because if I look good, I'm feeling good, and I can go out and I can, shoulders back, and I can portray myself as a confident person. Like every morning here, it's great. The weather's unbelievable, but I'm out having a run, going and do something. But it is vanity, but it's exactly like you said. Like I feel good about myself, and I feel good, and I feel mentally ready to go to work. If I've done something, I feel mentally fresh. And the days that I don't, like if I have a day off, I'm more. It's tougher to get going. But you made a great point there, and something that we are doing a lot of work with the youth over here, and a presentation that we've got actually tomorrow night is, that support network outside of football, because I don't know what's going on behind closed doors when the players leave here. And young kids in particular, if something's going on at home that's affecting them on the pitch, then we need to know, because it can affect our relationship as a player to coach.
Yeah.
Because if we all going onto the pitch and you aren't performing, and then, I'm saying, Brendan, what's going on, mate? F off.
Yeah.
Leave us alone. Like, I'm taking that as like, there's a problem between me and you, but there's not. There's actually a problem at home that I need to know about. So then, like, I can come to you and be like, you all right, mate? Yeah. Like, how's things? And then we can work together. And I think that's a key for academy systems as well, is that you have to have, whilst you have to have the player-coach relationship, the coach also has to have a relationship with the parents, and the parents being able to help aid the development of their son or their daughter or whoever it is, to be able to pick up the phone and be like, listen, like, Brendan's having a bit of a tough time at home at this moment in time. Can you just keep an eye on him? Like, and he could be like, oh God, I didn't know that. Like, he's been fine. But then there might be little triggers when you think, all right. And I think it's key that, to be able to give kids nowadays the best opportunity is that you need to have the whole package needs to be working together. And if it's not, then that could be a contributing factor to somebody not making it, or even injuries. You could be leaving here. You could be leaving the gym, the academy, and then going and doing your own workouts at home to try and burn off like that mental blocking that's going on. But it's actually going to affect you, because you're putting more stress on your body. Then we could be like, do you know what it is? You ain't going to go to the gym. You're going to come in the morning, and we're going to do a controlled workout. And then, like you said, you could, instead of going and doing kicking at 9:30, then join the team and then doing kicking, I could be taking you for, like, we could be going and doing a bike to burn off that frustration that's stopping you from leaving your third session and then going and doing a fourth, like, at home, to burn out that frustration. And it's just all working. And that's what, a big thing that we're going to talk about, like, tomorrow night when we have our presentation, is that we need to work together to try and help you as the player give yourself the best opportunity.
Yeah, I felt that's kind of needed a little bit more. I needed kind of like an arm on my shoulder, like someone kind of, are you all right, Brendan? Like, have a little chat. Obviously, even to say, oh, we'll have a little cup of coffee. And like, there was one or two occasions, like there was some people who were great with that, but I felt like I needed it a bit more. And like you talk about like maybe changing the training, like the gym was kind of like my little thing to like help mentally, like help me mentally deal with it and make me feel like I was doing something. Because going in, especially when you're out with a long-term injury, like going in every day, doing the same routine, doing them little exercises that like you're sitting on the floor, move like ankle injuries, moving your ankle up and down, like sitting with
especially when
like
you got to do them with Carl as well.
yeah,
You
you've
know what
got
I
to do
mean?
them.
With
You've got
Carl
to deal with
Nelson.
Carl's crack every day as well. But no, but like stuff like that, it's like mentally draining. You feel like you need to do something. That's why I think I found like a little bit of like hope in the gym, and that's why I kind of like I was up early. Like there was days where I used to go to the gym at 5:30 in the morning before football, then come in and then do gym. Like the coaches probably didn't even realize I did used to, but I used to because it was like it got me up in the morning. It gave me that kind of feeling like I'd done something today. Like nobody else was doing what I was doing, so I'm working harder. So I'm pushing myself, and it just made me feel good. When realistically, it probably was doing a bit more damage than it was because like I was getting up early, so I was losing sleep. I wasn't recovering as much. There was like, obviously more like my body needed to recover a lot more than what it should be, especially when I had injuries and stuff. So if maybe someone said to me, "Look, Brendan, like I love your attitude, I love the attitude of you doing the gym. If I could help you out and do it a bit more controlled, or we could maybe change a few things up, it'll help you long term. Like you can still do these little things that you like, but if we add in a bit of that, I think it's going to help you. Or maybe if you back off and then tomorrow we'll do this." Like just kind of like working with the player rather than just saying, right, no, because there's a lad, Alex
100%.
Kitchen, who I've done a podcast with. He's a
Yeah.
PT now. He got banned from the gym completely. And he would have just, I know, like, because he's seen him now, he's an absolute unit, but he had a lot of injuries as well. But I think but like people like that who are in that mentality, banning people from something just means they're going to go and do it at home. Like, that's that.
It's
I used to do
exactly,
that,
and I think that's a great point. Is that stopping people from doing what they want to do? It's just like I tell my daughters, right, stop that. Well, what they're going to do? Like, as soon as you say no to them, they're going to do it.
Rebel.
So why not?
Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody rebels. Like if somebody tells me that I can't, like Peter, you can't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You need your extra hour sleep. Well, I'm gonna get up at 4:45.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like so it's a big thing from a mental standpoint. And it's something that I learned throughout when I done my second ACL is that you got to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like you can't say no to me. I can't do this. We've got to work together to help me mentally get through this long-term injury by allowing me to do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like a big thing for me when I certainly, but it was Derek Wright through my first. I got to a point where he knew that I wasn't. I was struggling, so he just said, "Get yourself away for 2 weeks." That 2 weeks ain't gonna make a difference. So I flew out to my best mate lived out in San Diego. Go to America for 2 weeks, just blow out, go and get absolutely blotted for 2 weeks, have fun. You know, your knee's fine. You know, if you fall over drunk on a night, you're not gonna re-tear.
Yeah.
I got to physically a point where, like you said just before about doing the same exercises day after day, I was just I couldn't be bothered.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, get yourself away. So then when I done it the second time, I knew what I needed to do. I knew what was coming. But I also knew that I needed 2 weeks at some point during that rehab to get away, to refresh and come back refocused and ready to go and attack this injury to make sure that I come back. And that's exactly what I did. As soon as I done my ACL at QPR, I said to the physio, we've got to get to a point where I've got to say to you, I need 2 weeks. And Neil Warnock, who was the manager at the time, was incredible with that. He was like, get yourself away. So my mate was still out at San Diego, so I came back out here again, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We went to Vegas, I had fun, and I came back, and it was the best thing for me was that I got away, probably the wrong time in my rehab program, where I needed to be kicking on to get back. But I needed that 2 weeks, and I believe that I got back earlier than the surgeon said because I was giving them 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because I had the relationship with the physio to be like, sorry, the plane just going away. To be like, we're going to work together. We're going to work together to get you through this injury. Like, I'm not going to say to you, you've got to do this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 300, however many, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, this is what we're going to... No, let's work together. And there was some days it'd be like, I'd come in and be like, nah, I can't be bothered today. All right, go to the swimming pool. I want you to do 50 lengths. And then I want you to do this. And I'd be like, yeah, all right, that's a different... Yeah, go on, then we'll do that. And it was just player patient. I mean, you know yourself now with your work, and some guys are going to come to you and be like, can't be bothered to lift them dumbbells today, mate. So you have to work with them. And I think that's a big key for me mentally is how I got through and particularly through the second ACL was that you know, me and the physio, we worked together on the program, and we stayed on the same path, but we had a little couple of detours throughout it that kept me mentally fresh and kept me mentally ready to go, so that I could get back. And, you know, touch wood, I haven't had any problems since I've done that.
Yeah, no, you do need to hit that reset button. Like, what's it in the basketball documentary? I forgot what it's called. Went blank. But Dennis Rodman, he done the same thing. He went. I think I can't remember the coach's name, but he let him go to Vegas for a few days. And I
Yeah,
think he
Phil
came back. He was
Jackson.
still home. Yeah, he came back and he was still hungover. But then, like the next game, he was like top scorer or whatever it is. Like some people need that little reset. Like I had it. Like it was more. It probably wasn't the best thing. But after, so when I was playing in Scotland, I'd done my ankle, so I've had I had lateral ankle surgery, had a full reconstruction. That was my last injury I had in Scotland. So when I'd done that, I literally booked a flight to Ibiza for like 4 nights, I think it was. Went away, and I told about it in another podcast. I didn't enjoy it at all because I wasn't in the right mind space. But me doing that flipped the switch in me, and kind of like I remember, because I write a journal every single morning. I had my journal at the time, and I wrote in the morning like, this isn't what you're about. This is, I'll have to look back on exactly what I wrote, but this is not what you're about. Like, you're better than this, kind of thing. And from there, this is when I've kind of started to kind of like progress. I started my PT, started getting clients, started my podcast, and things are just kind of, but you need that. Sometimes you need to have like a realization moment, which I think that was a big thing for me. And like, obviously I wasted a bit of money, went away on holiday and had a crap time, but it was a lesson that I feel like in my life I needed to learn, because it's kind of just like, it's flipped the switch. It was a complete reset from that moment onwards. Like my mindset just changed. Literally the whole time when I was injured, I was thinking like, right, I need to get away, I need to get away, I need to get away. And then I got my operation date and the club let me go, and I was like, right, I'm going away before my operation. And then it just reset me completely. And people are probably thinking like, oh, like footballer, you're still getting paid, you can go away on holiday when you want, like who do you think you are, kind of thing. But people don't understand how mentally draining it can be, these long-term injuries. And when you've been in the sport since you were like, what, probably like 6-7 years old, all the way up to I was 22 when I had an ankle injury, that's been your whole life. And then you get told that if you might not be able to do it anymore. It is a big hit. It's like almost like losing a family member, or like people get upset like splitting up with a long-term girlfriend or something like that. It's like that sort of like hit. It's like you need to like go through that period of like remorse or finding something to cope, to reset, and then move forward with your life.
And the thing about it's 100% right, because it was actually my dad that who's one of like a big influencer for me. But he said he works at Durham University, like he's a project manager. So he's not a teacher or anything like that. But it was something that somebody said to him about, who was kind of doing a little bit of research on sports stars and in particular footballers. It's like the success rate of being a footballer and making it is 0.001% from when you go in to actually becoming a footballer. Well, what's the success rate for a guy who wants to be an accountant? What's the success rate for the guy who wants to be, you know, like a personal trainer? Probably 100%, because there's going to be jobs there. Do you know what I mean? So there's a big difference between being the success in a footballer, but how many players want to be a footballer? Millions. How many people want to be like accountants?
Yeah.
Millions probably, but not as many. So do you know what I mean? It's like the success rate of being, because especially for us Geordies, the be all and end all for us is playing in the first team at Newcastle United. Yeah. And when that doesn't happen, it's heartbreaking. Like, it was heartbreaking for me to leave at 24, but I lived a dream. But when I first went in at 17-year-old, there was only me and Chops from our age group, Michael Chopper, that came through. And after that, I don't think Stephen Taylor was the one after that, but there was like 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, thousands, millions of players that have been through the system since that haven't made it. Well, the amount of people that go to university and try and study to be an accountant, like I said, or a personal trainer, or whatever it is, they become what they want to be. Mm-hmm. Like the majority, like a lot, more than 0.001% become what they want. So the mental toughness to deal with failure and then get back up and start again, it says a lot for a character of a football player, or a failed football player. And I hate to say that, but like, to be able to pick yourself up and then go and do something else, because it's a tough environment that we live in. And like you said, injuries, play a part, and it can be really unforgiving world that I don't think many people that haven't been in this environment really understand. They just, like you said, they think, oh, he's a footballer, he's getting paid, he'll be able to deal with it. No, you know what I mean? It's a false. We have a false picture of the world that we live in, and like you said, it's a small world, it's a small bubble. But I tell you what, like I'm glad I've got 2 daughters, and they can become footballers if they want to become footballers. But I'll be encouraging them if I had a son to do anything other than be a footballer, because it's not an environment for weak-minded people. You've got to have it. You've got to have some bollocks about you to be able to get there. But you also got to have the bollocks to be able to deal with failure, pick yourself up, and then become something else thereafter.
Football's probably a lot more mentally. I think, like I talked about before, it's a lot more mental than I think anything else. And literally, if you're going to progress, like you're going to pursue football full time, you're almost playing the lottery with your own life, in a sense. Literally, you are. Like you said, the chances. Yeah. What's the chances of you win the lottery? What's the chances of you becoming a Premier League footballer or whatever it is? Like, it's ridiculous. And all the effort that you need to put in, the years and years from like the ages of, like, I don't know, when you first start kicking the ball, 5, 6 years old, to maybe even like getting to 18 and getting released from an academy after your scholarship, or even 16, you don't get a scholarship. Like, that's all your life pretty much that you've dedicated to that, and getting that wiped away from you. You're literally at the start, and you're like, what do I do now? And then you can go down different routes, dark routes. Some people pick themselves back up, which is great to see. But look, some people, it takes years for that to actually happen, and people always look back, like you talk about the guy at the pub. Like, when you're 70 years old, looking back, they still say, "Oh, remember that time I was on the bench, or I trained with, I don't know, Johan Kabay when he was at Newcastle. I could have been in the first team," stuff like that. You see them stories because they're still thinking about it. That's still stinging in somewhere in part of their life, because they gave up half their life at the time to that. Which is why, like, you see so many young lads, even not in young lads, even lads who are coming out of football after the end of the career, like, struggling. Obviously, depression's a big thing these days, mental health. Yeah. Like, you see so many people struggling with it. It's because the amount of dedication, the hours that you put in to the game, and sometimes you don't get in. It's like with a job like accountancy, whatever effort you put in, say you're studying for a degree, if you put the effort in, you're going to get a good degree at the end of it. If you don't put the effort in, you're not. With football, you can put all the effort in the world. You could have an injury. You might have a manager who doesn't like you. You could just, I don't know, have that one bad game at the wrong time, and then something like your career's kind of not almost down the drain, but in a sense, it can happen. Yeah,
and I think, just touching on that, people talk about, having the courage to battle through these things. For me, I look at it, and I've got more respect for a guy who's got the courage to come to me and just say, I'm struggling. I'm listening to I listened to a podcast with Chris Kirkland. Obviously, like the goalkeeper, obviously he's suffered, quite badly with mental health issues over the last few years. And the big thing that he said there is that, he blamed everything. His out was that, like, his wife. Yeah, my wife's not well at the moment in time. I need some. It was actually him that was having the problems, but he was using other people to hide his problems. And he said the biggest courage in a person is not to hold it in and fight, like the courage to fight through that problem. It's actually having the courage to just come out and say, I got a problem. I need help. Like, it's the biggest 3 words, and I think that can be said for somebody, or the most 3 courageous words. I need help. It's something that I struggled with, like I said, certainly when I went to Barnsley, and talking to Danny Wilson, and he would I need help. I need somebody to help me. I can't do this on my own. I can't. I didn't even tell me mum and dad. Do you know what I mean? I didn't tell me missus. I had to, and still to this day, my dad probably didn't really know, because I still haven't kind of told him. But I needed to speak to somebody. And Chris Kirkland said that. It's just like he needed to go and speak to somebody to get himself through it. Now, he ended up retiring because of it, because he said he just fell out of the game. But the biggest thing that he learned from it was just having the courage to be just putting his hands up. And like he's a 6'7" goalkeeper, and I've played against the big man, and he's huge, and he's an intimidating figure. But somebody of that stature, if he can do it, then anybody can. Do you know what I mean? But it's just being brave if you feel, and it might not be It might not be your mum, it might not be your dad, it might not be your mate. It just might be a stranger that you need to go and talk to, or it might be your mate, or it might be. You just have to find that person that you trust, that person that you can sit down and like almost break down to, and just get it all out, and then you can work from there. And I think it helped me, and I know for a fact that it's like even now I still have. You talked about it just before. I've still got my reset days that I just need to refocus. There's still days where I wake up and I'm like, don't feel right here. You know, I just don't feel right. And I've got my own little triggers now. I've got, you know, you talked about it there. I've got a journal. I write a journal myself. Something that it's a guy called Kevin Roberts from Saatchi and Saatchi. He's, you know, he went in and he built Saatchi and Saatchi from ground zero up. And his little thing in his journal every day is champions do extra. And it's that 3 words, it's just his reset. So when he writes them words down, right, bang, ready to go. And it's something that I say to like all guys now, and it's that find that reset, whatever it may be. You know, the reset might be going, just having a pint.
Yeah.
The reset, everybody's got their own different kind of resets, and there's nothing that I can say to you that's going to be like, it's going to help you. You've got to find that within yourself, but to be able to find it, you've got to talk to people. You've got to be able to have the courage to open up and be like, you know, I need help here. What can I do? How did you do it? You know, what did you do? There might be something that I say to you that's going to help you go forward, or it might trigger an idea that's going to help you. So it's having that courage to be able to go and do it, and then having the courage to work on it and progress from there.
Yeah, I think all the stuff that you said about like the journals, so I remember when I was little and people used to talk about this because Dave Watson was big on like, he's big into his like mindfulness and his yoga and all that, like all that hippie stuff. Like I used to think, oh, what's this hippie stuff that we're going to be doing today? Like, you know, I can't remember the other coach we had, Scottish one, he was at the reserves, so he was big on it as well, all about mindfulness. But like back then when I was like 16, 17, 18, I thought, oh, this is a load of crap. Like, I don't know. But you learn, like I've learned a lot, that knowing your own mind and knowing like what you're feeling like today, and knowing that you need to have that and then reset days, and what kind of works well for you and what doesn't work well for you, knowing that like helps you so much. And it also helps you help other people as well. Like we talk about, if someone's having a bad day, going up to them like, oh, you all right, mate? Like, what's happening? Have a coffee and stuff like that. Like you learn, but it does take time. Like for any young lads that are listening who are like probably thinking, we're like talking about mindfulness and all this stuff, like what's all this hippie sort of thing? You'll learn, trust me, the older you get, it's almost like a little bit of wisdom that you get from when you kind of go through certain experiences. Like I'm only 23, I'm not wise or anything by anything. You've obviously been through a lot more things, more experiences in life than me, but the little things that I have been through have taught me a lot. And I think one of the big things that I want to try and help young lads, especially like young footballers, young athletes, young lads in general, like even young girls in general, just anybody going through certain things, I want you to not do the mistakes that I've done, because I've done them myself. I don't want you to go through what I have. In a sense, I do want you to learn from your mistakes, but I don't want you to go through what I've had, just because it's not a nice thing to go through. Like injuries, I tell lads, like I was on about before, if you feel a niggle, go and see someone about it. Like don't hold it in, because the worst thing you can do is just keep on playing through it. If you're struggling mentally with someone, go and talk to someone about it, because the worst thing you can do is leave it. It builds up in your head and then gets to the point where you completely break down, which is one of the big things why I start the podcast, what I do on social media. I try and that's one of the main things I'm focusing on. So, but like we said, it's so hard to talk. It
is, and I think it's brilliant that what you're doing, because it helps when you can speak to people that have gone through what you're going through, because it can just kind of be. I'm trying to put this. I don't know how to put this in the right way, but it's like to go through the struggles. You can help people more. Do you know what I mean? Like you understand what people are going through, but like if I'm going to, I tried 3 or 4 psychologists before I found the one that I wanted to, and then one that I talked to was an ex-footballer, but the other ones that I was going to had never been a footballer. Like they had all the degrees and they had everything, and what they were saying to me was 100% right. What they were saying to me, but like to myself, he doesn't know what I'm going through really. Like he might have had issues, you know, himself. It's ended up him being a psychologist or her a psychologist, but for me, it's like I want to talk to somebody who's been through these issues, because I can relate to you. Like, I know when you're talking to me, there's not only is it the professionalism with that, but there's also like the truthness to it. So you know what I'm going through when I've been through like a long-term injury. I mean, you've had the injuries, I've had the injuries. So when somebody's coming to you, they know, so they can look you in the eye knowing that you're going through, or you've been through what I'm going through. So I think but some people don't. Like, I've known guys who don't want to talk to like people who've been in football. They want to talk to like guys who are interested in rugby, cricket, theatre, whatever it is. But again, it comes back to just, first and foremost, having the courage to just go and seek that out, and I think it's great that, you can pass on your wisdom, and, it's a big thing. I think that the people just need to, and I wish I had your mentality at 23. Do you know what I mean? After I'd done my cruise ship when I was 23 at Newcastle, I wish I'd had that mindset, because like I said at the start of this, maybe my career might have gone like a different path and I could have achieved a lot more. I just didn't have the courage at that time to do what you're doing now, and I did later on in my career. So it's brilliant, and I'm a massive advocate for people just opening up and just trying to help each other out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think the best person to speak to is someone who you don't really know at the same time, but someone who's been through what you've been through. Like, if someone, like, I think it would be easier for like me to go and message to say I'm going through what I did go through and I'm listening to me now. And if I see that, I think it'd be easy for me to just message. Obviously, it sounds weird. Message me in a sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But someone who's been through a similar thing, kind of thing, like who I know has been through it, who's kind of a few years ahead. I was listening to something the other day. Like, the best person to talk to, or the best person for me to help, is someone who's going through what I was, who's like kind of 5 years behind me. That's the best person. Like, I think it was to do with personal training. So like, they were on about, they were executives in a business or something like that, and now they've transferred to full-time online coaching. Their client base, their kind of their niche is people who run these big businesses, and maybe you can only train 2-3 times a week, highly stressed jobs, but they want to lose a little bit of body fat because they've been through it. And these people, their clients who they're focused on, are 5 years behind them. That's who they're focused on, and that's why they can help them so much. Like, that's why I feel like I want to kind of focus my attention on the kind of young athletes who are coming through, who are maybe even struggling with injury, coping mentally, or maybe they need to like build themselves up physically to cope with the game. It can be any sport, it can be anything. But I feel like, because I know what they went through, it's probably easier for them to talk to me rather than if I'm just talking to like a random psychologist who's maybe got no experience in football. Probably is quite hard for me to like open up to them, because I'm just talking. I feel like they're just nodding their head and saying yes, and they don't really understand. Yes, they understand me, but they don't truly understand what I'm going through. Yeah. So there's the main thing is probably talk to people who have been through similar things is the best way to go about it. Like, family members can be great, but it's harder to talk to them about it.
Oh, 100%, because you've got to live with that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You've got to see that person day in, day out. The biggest thing for me is like the guy that I only see him once a week, sometimes twice a week. And he didn't give two shits about my wife, my kids, in terms of like, he didn't know them. I didn't know him, but I knew, like you said, I'd done my research. I knew what he'd been through, and I thought, what is this guy could help me? But he was somebody completely new.
Yeah.
And you all of a sudden, like, you start talking about your wife and kids, you start talking about your mum and dad. But my mum and dad are two of the biggest influences, like I said before, and like, they've helped me amazingly, but they couldn't have helped me through what I went through when I was injured. Yeah. They couldn't have helped me because they've got an emotional attachment to me that would have hindered probably more than helped, because they had that unconditional love that they have for me, and that would have been blinded, and it would have been the worst thing for me was to go to, like, I could have probably gone to my dad and been like, listen, Dad, like, because my dad was an international rugby referee, so he knows endless amounts of people in that side of the game, or in the professional environment. But I needed to do this myself. I need to go and find that person. Like, I know that I could have gone to my dad and he would have helped us, but I needed to figure it out myself as well. And I think that was a big thing for me, was that I needed to do this on my own. Yes, I needed help, but I needed the help. I needed to do it on my own, and I mean, some people can't. Some people need that help to be able, or that push in that route. But part of my reset was having to do the work, because it was like you said before. You know, you finished at 10. We finished at 12 o'clock. I had nothing to do. I was not, I wasn't into like computer consoles. I never have been. In fact, I'm calling it a computer console. Just says it all. But I had to work to find things. So it was like distractions outside of the game was helping me refocus to make sure that I was focused for the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So having to work and the guy, we used to, most of the time that we went for our sessions was on the golf course, because I love playing golf and he liked playing golf. And it was a great way for us to spend, 3-4 hours talking about what we're going through, and an environment which I absolutely loved. I love playing golf. If I could be anything other than a footballer, I would have been a golfer. But he found that within me, and whilst I never knew him, we used to go on the golf course and have a round and talk about things. And invariably, probably 17 of the 18 holes, we're talking about anything other than what we needed to talk to. But that one hole was all I needed. Do you know what I mean? That one hole that, we would talk about what I needed to do. And then sometimes it would be 2 holes, I feel. But I'm just using it as an analogy. But I found an environment where it was taking me away from football. I was with a person that was helping me refocus, and I found the reset. But I had to go and do it myself, as well as, getting help. And it helped me. And like I said, I just wish at 23, like you're doing now, I wish I'd done it when I was a lot younger. And it's probably one of the, if not the biggest regret of my career, is that I didn't seek help earlier.
Right, we're back on. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back on. So just to finish off, because I know you need to shoot off because you've got training, because you're up at, was it half past? Oh, no, 10 past 6.
10 past 7 now. We've got our COVID testing at 7:30, and then we're on the grass at 9 o'clock. It's now we're hitting peak summer, so we trained yesterday and it was 116 degrees, so we try to get up early and get out of here.
Mental, isn't it? It's a different world over there now. We're clinging on to some sun. So finish off the little end Q&A. I know you've had a little look at it. 3 people you would like to invite round for dinner or go out for a coffee with?
It's a good question. 3, one would be, I would reference it before, I love me golf, so Tiger Woods would be one. Mm-hmm. He would be, I just love watching him. I love everything about him, like how he's dealt with everything from literally such a young age, and still going into his 40s and winning majors. I know he had a 10-year gap, but winning a major at 40 after everything he went through, he would be probably number 1. Number 2, it's a good one. Probably Cristiano Ronaldo. Again, 35, still peak of his powers. Probably still one of the best in the game.
Yeah. And
number 3 would be Jennifer Aniston, just because. Just because. You know
Friends
what I mean?
Fan,
yes, I am, but she's my kryptonite.
Boyhood crush.
Yeah, boyhood, manhood, everything crush. She's just.
Our missus isn't listening, by the way.
Oh no, mate, she knows. She knows. If she was, if I walked in and she was lying there, my missus knows that
fair play.
It's she's got hers, but she yeah. So
that's like mine with Zac Efron. If you're walking and Zac Efron's in the bed, you're just like, fair play, fair enough.
Yeah.
But next question: 3 people you'd want to train with, so it could be football wise or in the gym.
You know what it is? I'm not a big fan of it, but Sir Steve Redgrave. Mm-hmm. I know very little about training, but how he trained his body for 4 years to win a gold medal in a rowing race that probably lasted, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was. But the 4 years, how they trained their body, Matthew Pinsent and the guys that did, the rowing. I just love to see how they've been able to do that, how they did it. And then, I've done a lot of reading after, and, how he had to deprogram his body. He couldn't just retire and stop, or else he would have died. That's basically how he said. He had to detrain his body. So to train with somebody like that would have been incredible to see. Again, Tiger Woods. What's his daily process? Yes, I would have been loved to pick his mind, but what does he do daily to make sure that because golf's, there's a different variation of shots that need to be played to, on average, you hit about 60, 70 golf balls in a round. How does he program himself to be able to take in the tangibles of the wind, the undulations on the green, the different, train with somebody like that. And then third and fourth was, you talked about him before, was a guy who I've done quite a bit of research in, is Phil Jackson, who was, the Chicago Bulls coach. How did he, and now as I'm a coach, how did he make these superstars win? He's got 6 rings, 3 with the Bulls, 3 with the Lakers. How did he get as a coach now? How did he train these guys to be, Michael Jordan, the best guy in the world? But then how did he deal with Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr? How did he get these guys? How did he train these guys? And then how did he work himself to be able to get to them, to get them stars to work? So, doing a lot of research now, young in my career as a coach, but doing a lot of research on how these coaches get the superstars to perform day in, day out, to be able to go and win championships. So they would be the 3 guys that, I'd love to see work.
Yeah, just a little question that isn't on there, but I always think about like the top athletes and coaches and stuff like that. I feel like you have to change your mentality completely and almost like alienate yourself. Like I look at like the likes of like Ronaldo and stuff like that, who are literally playing like 2 games a week in front of millions and millions of people every single day. Like how I don't understand how they like switch, how they first maintain it consistently, and second, how they switch off. Like, I don't know, like with yourself, obviously playing at St James's Park in front of 50,000 people, playing in the Premier League weekly. How did you kind of manage like maintaining your focus and stuff like that, but also switching off? Did you find it hard, or did you quite deal with it quite well?
That was all right, because I found I used to go for a game of golf whenever I was finished. I lived at Whitley Bay with my mum and dad, so me and my best mate used to go to Whitley Bay and play golf. That was my kind of time away. I'd go on the practice range, or I'd go on the putting green, or I'd go to to Gossey, to Portlands, and just hit some golf balls at the driving range. That was my out, and it still is my out now. Even as a coach now, I'll try and go for a game of golf. It gets harder as a coach with all the stuff that you got to do, but that was my release, was to just go for 4 hours, switch my phone off, just have a game of golf. Everybody's got their own hobbies and interests outside. Some guys, the guys here, quite a lot of them are still doing their college degrees. And a lot of them that I've spoken to enjoy doing it because it's a break from football. And I think it's key that whatever you're doing, whether it's an office 9 to 5, or whether it's you're a professional athlete, or whether you're just like a part-time or whatever, is you have an interest outside of your environment that enables you to, again, hit the reset. And for me, it was always golf. When I moved to London, I lived on my own for a year. Again, golf was my biggest, and I had a lot of problems settling into London life, but golf was my kind of my out, my way to reset, my way to kind of refocus, and still to this day I love it.
Yeah, that's the thing with football as well. Lads who are in football, they're so passionate about it. They're literally football, and they get home, they're watching football all night. I feel like lads need that. I needed that, something to switch off, which is why I found the gym and other little things. Like, even if it's like watching Netflix or something, you just need that time to like completely switch off. Like you need that, the brain to relax. I'm bad for that now. Like I'm constantly like focusing on stuff like that. But my girlfriend tells me all the time, I need to just, even 1 day a week or even half a day, just switch off and just relax and forget about things. Yeah. It'll do you better in the long term. But I know you need to get off. So last question is, one thing you'd say to yourself 5 years ago, you could even go 10 years ago.
Yeah, I wish I could tell myself to stand up for myself a little bit more. And I don't mean going in like we talked before about, battering on the door of coaches and things like that, but, having the courage to kind of do more. Like I said earlier on, I've lived my life with a countless amount of regrets. But could I go back and be, work through them? Could I go backwards and work through the regrets? And, like I said, I might never have changed my path in my career. I might have still had the same path, but I might be looking back now with less regrets, if that makes sense. So just having the courage to work harder, having the courage to not accept kind of things, be a little bit more of a man before I was a man, even going back to my time as in the academy. Could I have done more? So just giving myself even more of an opportunity and just saying to myself, listen, you've got to have the courage to do these things. When you're not like we talked about before, when you're not feeling great, pick yourself up, go and get your bag of balls and go and work on your left foot, or go and work on your right foot, or go and work on your head, or go and work in the gym, or even myself, go and talk to somebody. So I just wish I could have done more, and I would have say to myself, do more, do more. Don't make the endless amount of regrets at 36 that I am now. Just make it, 2 or 3 regrets. So that would be a big thing for me. But again, who knows what would have happened? I still look back with a lot of pride and, proud of what I've achieved. But I still look back thinking, could I have done more?
Yeah, you've done a lot, mate. Don't worry. Don't let yourself down emotionally. Honestly, a lot of people would love to have 50 plus games, but it just goes to show you, even when you're at that level, people still have regrets. Like it's normal to have that sort of regrets, no matter what success you have, kind of thing. So don't beat yourself. I'm bad for beating myself down on things if you didn't do things. But you're always gonna mess up on 1 or 2 things and look back. Oh, I could have done this, but you learn from it, like we've already discussed.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you very much for coming on, mate.
No worries,
it's been
mate.
an absolute
thanks for having
pleasure.
me. It has, mate. It has, and good luck with everything. I'm loving your Instagram videos, mate. To be honest with you, you're giving me the motivation. Looking at your body compared to mine now, mate, I'm thinking, oh my days. But it's great to see what you're doing. It's proud. Obviously when we worked in Newcastle, I'd seen what you were going through. So what you've done, post career, I wish you all the best, mate. And I'm looking forward to seeing you going from strength to strength, quite physically and in many ways I'm one.
I'm trying to get there, mate. Progressing slowly.
Yeah.